So when it comes to leaks and rumors about the Nintendo Switch 2, there's been a couple of things that have come out recently, and I'm starting to catch up and making my videos on that and giving you guys my thoughts. But today I want to talk to you guys about something that came out from a pretty reputable source, and I feel like it could be amazing news if it does end up being true. So this information is coming from Nate the Hate, and if you don't know who this person is, he is a reputable insider who's reported on a lot of stuff when it comes to Nintendo, talking about upcoming games. He's teased upcoming games, he's gotten stuff correct, especially when it comes to Nintendo Directs as well. As he said, like just recently in terms of the last Nintendo Direct, somebody asked him about it, and he said June seems like a good time for a Direct, and he said that just a week before the last Nintendo Direct happened, so it definitely seems like he does have inside sources and some real information. Now on the Spawncast, which is a podcast that he appears in, he was talking about some of the inside information that he's heard when it comes to Nintendo's next-gen system, and he was speculating about some of the stuff that he thinks is going to be a possibility, and so this isn't like a confirmed leak or something that's actually going to happen for sure, but it definitely could be pretty likely. So when discussing physical games for Nintendo's next-gen system, Nate was talking about how it's still going to be using cartridges just like the current Nintendo Switch, but those new ones could be using a brand new 3D NAND architecture. And then he followed up by saying that this would be an improvement from the current 2D NAND architecture that Switch cartridges are using right now. So what exactly does this mean? I'm not really expecting any of you guys to understand because I didn't either. I had to look this up online and learn for myself. So just by doing a quick Google search about this, we can see right here that when comparing the two, it says 2D NAND devices place storage cells side by side. 3D NAND adds another layer and stacks cells vertically. By storing more cells within the drive's chassis, 3D NAND provides more storage at faster speeds. A 3D NAND flash storage device also provides more storage at a lower price than a 2D NAND device. And so basically 3D NAND is just a more modern architecture of flash storage which can offer more storage for you at faster speeds, and it even costs lower now than 2D NAND devices. And so if Nintendo Switch 2 games are now going to be using this new 3D NAND architecture, it means that these cartridges are going to have faster speeds, which can give you better load times, you can have more memory on them and store more stuff in them, and they're even going to be cheaper now for developers, so it's really just a win-win situation if this actually ends up being true. And the best part about all of this is that this could actually fix one of the biggest issues that we have right now when it comes to physical Nintendo Switch games. Now, I don't know how many of you guys know about this, but all of the physical games that you buy for your Nintendo Switch, in terms of those cartridges, are not exactly the same. They work the same way by placing them exactly the same and clicking them into the console, but they are all actually different when it comes to the internal storage and capacity of them. So to give you a quick rundown of the current Nintendo Switch cartridges, Nintendo offers them in a 1GB, 2GB, 4GB, 8GB, 16GB, or 32GB capacity. So these are all the different types of cartridges that you can buy in terms of just blank cartridges that you put your game into. And they all, of course, just like when you buy anything that costs storage, the more storage something has, the more it costs for developers to buy them. And so nowadays, a lot of these big modern games that are coming out are very huge when it comes to their file sizes and how much space they actually take up. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen like all the memes about the Call of Duty updates and things like that, and now if Call of Duty is supposedly going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, you're going to be needing a lot of space now to be able to fit those types of games. But of course, buying these types of bigger cartridges can be very expensive, and that can actually be a loss for a lot of these developers where they have to spend so much money to buy these expensive cartridges to put their games onto, to the point where they don't really know exactly if they're going to be able to make their money back and if people might not buy them, and it can be a little bit of a risk for them to take. And because of that, we have one of the most horrible issues that happens right now with physical games, especially from third parties on the Nintendo Switch. And maybe some of you guys know what I'm talking about, but how many times have you gone to like a video game store or just looked at a whole bunch of Nintendo Switch games and have seen like these third-party games that have this awful white banner on top of the box art that says that you need additional storage space and that there's an internet download required to play the full game? Now, besides looking super ugly on the box art, the reason for this is that so many developers, when it comes to these big games, only put a portion of the games onto the cartridge now, and then make you, the consumer, have to download the rest of the game if you decide to buy it onto your micro SD card or the additional storage that you have on your system. So like all of these Nintendo Switch cartridges that I've shown you guys, let's say for example that somebody has a 10 GB game and they want to have a physical version of it available on the Nintendo Switch. To do this, they're going to have to buy a 16 GB cartridge to be able to fit the entire game, because the 1, 2, 4, and 8 GB ones are not going to be big enough to fit the entire game, so 16 is the smallest one that they're going to have to buy, but a 16 GB cartridge costs a lot of money. And so then by buying these expensive cartridges, the developers would need to charge more money for the games in order to make their money back for having to spend the money on those cartridges, which honestly isn't worth it, because who wants to go out and buy like a $75 or $80 game? It just doesn't really look that good. So because of that, what these developers do is instead buy these cheaper cartridges that are like 1 GB, 2 GB, 4, or 8, and put a portion of the game on there, and then just have a banner on top that says that you're going to need to download additional parts of the game onto your micro SD card, and basically make the player have to get the additional space themselves. So that's pretty much how developers are getting around that on the Nintendo Switch, which sucks because as a player and a consumer, it's a lose-lose situation for all of us. Like, it's either you buy the game at a more expensive price, which is going to be like $75, $70, $80, which a lot of people don't want to do, or you're going to have to buy a micro SD card and then have half the game get installed onto there and have your memory get taken up in that sense. And so when it comes to physical Nintendo Switch games, this has by far been one of the biggest issues, as a lot of these developers now just put a portion of the game onto a cheaper cartridge and then make the player have to download the rest of them. Like even in the last Nintendo Direct, they announced the Batman Arkham Trilogy, which is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, which is really cool, but if you buy the game physically onto a cartridge, you're only going to have the first game that's going to be on the cartridge itself, and the rest of the games you're going to have to download them onto the micro SD card of your system. And so if the Switch 2 is really going to be using 3D NAND cartridges, then like what we read earlier, there's going to be more storage, it's going to be faster, and most importantly, it's going to be cheaper, especially for developers. So this could finally mean that when we get these third-party games now on the next Nintendo system, they're actually going to be able to fit the entire game onto the cartridge, and hopefully we don't have to see these ugly banners ever when it comes to the games on the next system. And so I'm really hoping that this is true, because can you imagine having like these little cartridges that are going to be more capable now and able to fit like these big types of games now that could run on the next Nintendo system, like the Resident Evil 4 remake or Elden Ring? It would just be amazing. And so if this really does end up being true, it could fix one of the biggest issues that we have right now with the Nintendo Switch. So I really am hoping that this does end up being true. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, as I'm going to be talking more about Nintendo's next system as information is coming out. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think about all of this as well. Would you guys be very happy if the next Nintendo system is going to be having cartridges that are going to be using 3D NAND? Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.